Alright guys, so I come to you in the comfort of my hammock under our thing that I usually watch you guys during recess on, but I thought, hey, why not? So today is the finale of our book, and I'm excited to get right into chapter 38. 5 minutes later, they were all safely down, and James was excitedly telling his story to a group of flabbergasted officials. And suddenly, everyone who had come over on the Peach was a hero. They were all escorted to the steps of City Hall, where the mayor of New York had a speech of welcome. And while he was doing this, 100 steeplejacks armed with ropes and ladders and pulleys swarmed up to the top of the Empire State Building and lifted the giant peach off the spike and lowered it to the ground. Then the mayor shouted, "We must have a thicker tape parade for our wonderful visitors." And so a procession was formed, and in the leading car was an enormous open limousine, and sat James and all of his friends. Next came the giant peach itself. Men with cranes and hooks had quickly hoisted it onto a large truck, and there it now sat, looking just as huge and proud and brave as ever. There was, of course, a bit of a hole in the bottom of where the spike from the Empire State Building had gone, but who cared about that, or indeed about the peach juice that was dripping all over the street? Behind the peach, skidding about all over the place in peach juice, came the mayor's limousine, and behind the mayor's limousine came about 20 other limousines carrying the most important people in the city, and the crowds went wild with excitement. They leaned out the windows of the skyscrapers, cheering and yelling and screaming and clapping and throwing out bits of white paper and ticker tape, and James and his friends stood up in their car and waved back as they went by. Then a rather curious thing happened. The procession was moving slowly along Fifth Avenue when suddenly a little girl in a red dress ran out from the crowd and shouted, "Oh, James, James, can I please just have a tiny taste of your marvelous peach?" "Help yourself," James shouted back. "Eat all you want. I won't keep it forever anyways." No sooner had he said this than about 50 other children exploded out of the crowd and came running onto the street. "Can we have some too?" they cried. "Of course you can," James answered. "Everyone can have some." The children jumped on the truck and swarmed it like ants all over the giant peach. Imagery. Eating and eating till their heart's content. And as the news of what was happening quickly spread from the street to street, more and more boys and girls came running from all directions to join the feast. Soon there was a trail of children a mile long chasing after the peach as it proceeded slowly up Fifth Avenue. Really, it was a fantastic sight. To some, it looked as though the Pied Piper of Hamelin had suddenly descended on New York. And to James, who had never dreamed that there could be so many children as this in the world, it was the most marvelous thing that had ever happened. By the time the procession was over, the whole gigantic fruit had been completely eaten up, and only the big brown stone in the middle, licked clean and shiny by 10,000 eager little tongues, was standing left on the truck. And that is the end of chapter 38. Chapter 39, which is the last chapter. Let me sit up for this important. Okay, chapter 39. And thus the journey ended. But the travelers lived on. Every one of them became rich and successful in the new country. The centipede was made vice president in charge of sales of a high-class firm of boot and shoe manufacturers. The earthworm, with his lovely pink skin, was employed by a company that made women's face creams to seek commercials on television. The silkworm and Miss Spider, after they had both been taught to make nylon thread instead of silk, set up a factory together made of ropes for tightrope walkers. The glowworm became the light inside of the torch of the Statue of Liberty, and thus saved a grateful city from having to pay a huge electricity bill every year. The Old Green Grasshopper became a member of the New York Symphony Orchestra, where his playing was greatly admired. The ladybug, who had been haunted all her life by the fear that her house was on fire and her children were gone, married the head of the fire department and lived happily ever after. And as the enormous peach stone, it was set up permanently in a place of honor in Central Park and became a famous monument. But it was not only a famous monument, it was also a famous house. And inside the famous house, there lived a famous person. Can you make a prediction of who is living in the house? Tell somebody, or tell yourself if no one is around. The famous person was James Henry Trotter himself. What's that picture of? The Peach Pit. He's inside there with his friends. And all you had to do any day of the week was go and knock on the door, and the door would always be open to you, and you would always be asked to come inside and see the famous room where James had first met his friends. And sometimes, if you were lucky, you would find the Old Green Grasshopper in there as well, resting peacefully in a chair before the fire. Or perhaps it would be the ladybug who had dropped in for a cup of tea and a little gossip, or the centipede to show off his new batch of particularly elegant boots that he had just gotten. Every day of the week, hundreds and hundreds of children from far and near came pouring into the city to see the marvelous peach stone in the park. And James Henry Trotter, who once, if you remember, had been the saddest and loneliest little boy anyone could find, now had all the friends and playmates in the world. And because so many of them were always begging him to tell the story again of his adventures on the peach, he thought it would be nice if one day he sat down and wrote a book. And so he did. And that is what you have just finished reading. And that is the end of that book. Now, I have to pick that book up pretty soon because the grass is wet. But that was an amazing book, huh? I love that book. I love that author. It's so fun to read the way he writes. I hope that you have enjoyed James and the Giant Peach, and I would like you to finish up the book by just sharing one of your favorite parts. So open up your writing journal when you have a chance and think about James Henry Trotter and his story, and draw me a picture of one of your favorite parts of the book and tell me about it, and then we will share it tomorrow or later today, whatever time it is for you. Alright, I hope you guys are doing well. I'm sure I will see you soon. Be kind and patient with your families. Alright,